And it is time for Bigger 10 confidence picks. Where's the Big 10 confidence picks?
Bigger 10.
Bigger 10
confidence
picks.
Big 10 confidence picks.
You know what?
That's
yours is big, mine is bigger.
That's not confusing at all. You know what? We should have discussed this. We need to rename this podcast to Biggest 10 because I think we are probably
I think maybe we should change it to that next year. Yeah. All right, so let's get to week 4. But first, Aaron, tell us where we are in the standings.
This is going to be really quick. Perfect. Missed your best bet, or missed your bonus bet. Perfect.
And perhaps some of my analysis of the Iowa decision at the end had something to do with that touchdown causing me my bonus pick.
I already knew that I'd lost. Well, Georgia Southern Wisconsin game was over by the time Iowa began, and so I was really pulling for Iowa there, and they came through for me offensively for once, which means you got a perfect score there, but lost 7 points. I got a perfect score, but I lost 7 points. So guess what? It's the same margin that we ended up with last week. You love this? 3 weeks in, we instituted this new policy of creating a best bet, more variance every week,
gave it an odd crooked number,
trying to create chaos, and wow, that was a rousing success.
Well, with this week's slate of games, there might be a few differences. So let us begin.
And by the way, and I need to say this as well, I got out of this habit last year because the year before I'd gotten into this habit where I'd put your confidence picks up before I actually created mine, and I realized, that's probably not good. I've broken that, so I don't see yours until after I've done mine. So these are all what we really think. I'm not being influenced by Steve. He's certainly not being influenced by me.
All right.
And so these are your picks, Steve.
Let's begin. I've got 9 points on Michigan over Rutgers. I don't like Michigan covering that 25 or 6-point spread at all, but I do think Michigan is just simply the better team. They very similar cultures and makeups of their programs and styles, but Michigan is just going to do it with a lot higher caliber of a player. I'm going to go with Penn State over Iowa for my 8-point game. I just think it's a difficult spot for Iowa. You're down to, you lost Luke Lachey. You mentioned on the Bigger 10 broadcast, still some problems in pass pro. I think that if it's not Michigan, Penn State has the best pass rush in our league. And Drew Aller has been cash money wearing the blue jersey. Now, he struggled on the road at Illinois, and that's going to happen when you're a young buck, particularly in your first road start. But I just think this is a tough spot and situation for Iowa. So I'm going to put 8 points on the Nittany Lions for confidence. I'm going to put 7 points on Indiana over Akron. Although, I don't know, man. Do I trust Indiana that much? I mean,
really important game if you have the under 3.5.
It is.
Indiana.
That was a nice comeback last week against Louisville. They even had the ball with a chance to send it to overtime at the end and got down to about the goal line and couldn't cash it in. They're wearing these black uniforms. They look pretty sweet, actually. And you ask yourself, why are you wasting that for Akron? And then you stop and think, when you're Indiana, there's a few games on your schedule, only a few, that going in, we can or should win this. And you better not blow it. And so maybe that's why you bring out the relics for that, to give you guys every added advantage to make sure the Zips don't come out of there with a win. And remember that Joe Moorhead coach in there now, so they're not as sad as they've been in years past. I'm going to go with Nebraska. You see the Harsberg kid they put in at quarterback, basically a white Jeff Sims, but he did all the same running and stuff that Jeff Sims does. Well, the fumbles and turnovers. Yeah.
Fast guy. Holy cow.
Yeah, he did a great job. He should start again this week against Louisiana Tech, who doesn't play much defense at all. My 5-point game, I'm going to go to Minnesota over Northwestern. This is kind of Michigan and Rutgers, but like lower tier. Both of these programs look exactly the same and have the exact same issues, just Minnesota has better players. Mm-hmm. It'll be fugly. But I expect this to be like a 17-3, 20-6 kind of a Minnesota win, which means maybe I'll even look at the under. I'm going to go with Illinois over Florida Atlantic. I'm a little worried about this game. It's a tough spot for Illinois. They've got, right now in that locker room, they had really high expectations. Burt was talking his team up. We talked about that in Big Ten Media Days, remember? He was talking his team up all off-season and all preseason, and now they're off to this 1-2 start. They can't stop turning it over. Luke Altmaier is a much more athletic, explosive quarterback than Tommy DeVito. Unfortunately, he's already committed more turnovers than Tommy DeVito did all of last year, Aaron, all of last year. So I just wonder where Illinois' psyche is right now. I don't know how good Florida Atlantic is, but Tom Herman's a pretty good coach. I'm just a little worried about the spot in this game. I'm going to take Wisconsin over Purdue, but I'm worried about the spot in this game for the Badgers as well. Short week, Purdue desperate, trying not to lose consecutive home games. I don't know how good Wisconsin is, so I think they're better than Purdue, but the 3 points is my hedge in this situation. I think favors Purdue. For 2 points, I'm going to go with Notre Dame over Ohio State. Now, I love Notre Dame. You see at the bottom. I'll just go ahead and break that out. That's my bonus pick this week. Notre Dame plus 3.5. I'll take that hook. The two greatest bets in the history of college football sports betting, LSU at home at night, Notre Dame as a home underdog in any situation. Two greatest trends in the history of college football betting. I think Notre Dame's the better team at the line of scrimmage than Ohio State. I think they have the better quarterback than Ohio State. I think that grass is not getting mowed in South Bend this week. All right. Going to be some tall grass for Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Ibuka. But I think with Estamonte, that tailback, they can do with him. He's kind of a Hassan Haskins type. And I think they can keep Ohio State occupied in between the tackles with that running game, and Sam Hartman can hit them over the top. I like Notre Dame in the game, but because of my respect for Ohio State and the overall talent in the program, it's only my 2-point play. And my 1-point play is, I don't know where this is at. I usually love the team that was embarrassed the week prior, right? And I play that team in the NFL and college. Now, when I say embarrassed, I'm not talking about UMass. I'm talking about teams that have like some juice, some gravitas. Michigan State has to be embarrassed. 700 plus yards to Washington. They were never in the game. Noah Kim went for Big Ten Player of the Week. He's now the lowest rated quarterback in the Big Ten right now.
Yikes.
According to QBR. So this would be a bounce back spot. And it's the kind of game that Maryland usually loses, this kind of game all the time, I just don't know where Michigan State's psyche is. I don't know what kind of a coach Harlan Barnett is. So I'm going to take Michigan State on the rebound with the pride factor at home, but I'm only giving it 1 point. When in a more typical situation, this would be much higher on my list as a play.
Well said. I'm going in with my 9-point play, Penn State over Iowa. And there's this sentiment that, this is where Kirk Ferentz shines, underdog, huge situation. People don't expect this. And this is where James Franklin's. I really think Penn State has turned the corner, though. And I think they turned it for good against Utah. A really good Utah team just pulverized them in the Rose Bowl. A Utah team that beat Caleb Williams and USC in the Pac-12 championship game last year. I don't know. I think they've earned, and I think they are what the offseason praise said that they are. Yeah, you could see Drew Allar. He could struggle a little bit in his first wideout as a starter, but like you said, also the first 2 games that he played at home, he looked really, really good. He didn't look like a freshman or a first-year starting quarterback. He looked really good. So the situation is just not one where Iowa can get right offensively to the point of being competitive. So I think Penn State, and that's a look ahead to my bonus bet. I'm going Penn State 14 minus 14 and a half against Iowa.
Wow, emotional hedges abound.
I think even if Iowa keeps it close for the first half, I really just think that Penn State has the horses that they can pull away, especially in the second half and fourth quarter, if need be. My 8-point play, it's Michigan over Rutgers. The only reason why it's lower than Penn State over Iowa is because I'm still, I think you were overreacting, but just in case you weren't, and just in case Michigan players are just completely checked out so far in the season, or at least until they play competition with a pulse, and Rutgers comes in there and decides to make it crazy and make it dirty and make it ugly. That's enough for me to knock this down in confidence just by 1 point. Number 7, Illinois over FAU. I had the same thoughts that you did because Tom Herman is a good coach, as you said. I don't know how good FAU is, but I also don't know how good Illinois is. I would just say Luke Altmaier, yes, he's turned the ball over a ton. He's also had some pretty fantastic plays so far this season, so I'm going to give the edge to Illinois. Minnesota over Northwestern. Maybe I should have this in my 7-point slot, but there's always the possibility. I think we were talking about on Bigger 10, just Ethan Kaliak-Menis, their last offensive drive, just kind of gave up at the end there. I don't know where he is. I don't know where this offense is. no confidence in Northwestern, but there's always the possibility that this could be ugly going into the fourth quarter, like really, really ugly going into the fourth quarter. So it's not warranting being up in the top 3 picks. Number 5, I've got Maryland over Michigan State. So this is a variance play. I just think Michigan State, after what happened last week, and yes, I know the trends are what they are, and Maryland, I think, is very confident right now. I just like Maryland and where their trajectory is versus where Michigan State's is. Number 4, Indiana over Akron. Would really love it if Akron could steal a win here. But I think Indiana, again, their defense played decently. I was surprised. I looked up the score for the Indiana-Louisville game a couple of times last week, and I'm like, oh, wow, Louisville's just going to be all over them. This is going to be a bloodbath. And like you said, that was a great comeback. Probably should have at least forced overtime. So that has to count for something. I think there is a pulse in Indiana, and so I'm going to give them the edge over Akron. Number 3, Nebraska over Louisiana Tech. I think this is just going to be an out Jimmy's and Joe's type of game. At least you'd hope that if you're a Nebraska fan. Although Louisiana Tech, they're not the dregs of the group of 5 by any means. I'm going Ohio State over Notre Dame. Yes, Notre Dame is an underdog at home. You just cited that trend line. I get that. I just think if you had a game like you just had against Western Kentucky, where you seemingly put it all together. And that was a week before this game, which has been one of the most talked about games all offseason. It tells me that despite the deficiencies at the line, despite the deficiencies at the quarterback position, that team, well, their full attention is on their craft right now. Because yes, they had a couple of disappointing games to open up the season, but still, going against Western Kentucky, that could have been a look-ahead spot for them. And it wasn't. They were completely dialed in. So I think that entire team is dialed in right now. And I think they have a better than decent chance to prevail against Notre Dame, although it is a very good Notre Dame team. Number 1, I've got Wisconsin over Purdue. I have no idea what either of these teams are, what either of these teams are capable of. And I don't think anybody does. But give me the better roster. So even though it's on the road, so I've got Wisconsin over Purdue. And like I said, Penn State minus 14.5 against Iowa. That's my bonus.
So we've got 6 points of difference in opposition, but plenty of variance on picks that we agree on with points. So there could definitely be some movement this week after none at all this past week. So that'll be interesting to see, and that's why they play the games. We'll do this again next week right here on Bigger Ten.